Hi everyone, I'm Alex Rosenfeld, founder of Freshwater Investments, and this is Coffee with the T-Bird podcast. I sit down with fellow T-Birds who are making an impact in business, leadership, and entrepreneurship. Each episode features conversations that explore the pivotal moments, personal motivations, and lessons learned on their journeys. Whether you're a student, alum, or someone passionate about business and personal growth, you'll walk away with fresh ideas. This is a bit more than a podcast. It's a platform for connections, storytelling, and celebrating the global spirit of Thunderbird. This podcast is sponsored by Freshwater Investments. At Freshwater, we make it simple for you to invest in large apartment communities across the United States so you can earn passive income, grow your capital, and benefit from real estate tax breaks without owning or managing property yourself. Hello, everyone. My guest today is a hospitality entrepreneur with a rather fascinating journey. He started out in strategy consulting and private equity, working with big names like KPMG and Deloitte, but then made the leap into the world of hospitality, where he's been leading, scaling, and transforming businesses across 6 countries. Now he's founder of the Aspen Company, focused on repositioning iconic hotel properties in Europe. Michael speaks Russian, Ukrainian, and is learning Portuguese, and has lived in 9 countries. Michael, welcome to the show.
Truly a pleasure, Alex. Thank you for having me.
It's thank you for being with us. As I was preparing for this conversation, I checked your Instagram profile, and I saw amazing pictures from Antarctica, from your recent trip where you were skiing and camping in the snow with penguins. So maybe we can start there and talk about that experience first.
So with pleasure. So what's the genesis of Antarctica? It's actually pretty interesting. So you mentioned KPMG and Deloitte. That's when I was living in Russia. I had come to Russia. KPMG had hired me. They asked me to promise to stay for at least 2 years. They said it's not worth their investment if I stay less, and certainly people are going to try to poach me. That's what they said. And our team moved from KPMG to Deloitte. I gave actually close to 3 years, but they were right. There was a lot of people that, like in the first 2 months, there was companies trying to get me to switch to move to them. And I, man of my word, and I stayed with the team for actually longer than that time. I made the move to become CEO of what was probably the largest hotel investment company in Russia. One of the best jobs I've ever had. And the primary shareholder, he had his own investment company. The first year, it was always, Mr. Yukunin. That's, and after a year, he said, Michael, please stop calling me Mr. Yukunin. Call me Andre. And we developed a very close, went from a professional relationship to, a real friendship. Yeah, at the time, I was training for an Ironman, and he's a very active guy. So, we're in conversations like, oh, Michael, you like sports. He goes, do you like rock climbing? And of course, I'm like, absolutely. I love rock climbing. I'd never been rock climbing in my life. So he's like, okay, great. Let's, we're going to do this, rock climbing. And we went down to near Sochi in southern Russia. And I'm like, what did I get myself into? For one, I'm a little bit fear of heights. 2, you get the claustrophobia of being connected to people on a line where you can't move anywhere. It's awful. So now I'm sitting looking at a 300 meter pretty much vertical cliff. And Andre's, there's a group of us, like 6 of us. And he's like, all right, there's 2 ways up. One is the easy way, and you just go up through here, and the other way is the difficult way. And I'm the first one to be like, oh, let's go the difficult way for sure. So that was my first, adventure with Andre. And we had a successful rollout of these hotels, and ultimately ended up selling the hotel company for about 22 times EBITDA in 2018. And from there, when we were having kind of our final conversation about after everything had been executed and, talking about all the little technical details, Andre's like, all right, Michael, well, let's, he was organizing a trip to do ski trekking in the fjords. And, he invited me to come, and I absolutely without thought said, let's go. And I've been very lucky to participate in many of his adventures over the years. And without any sort of thought, just, yeah, Andre, scuba safari, I'm in. Or, ski tracking, wherever else, I'm in. Last year, he mentioned Antarctica. And again, without any sort of thought, I said, I'm in. He said, great. We're going to have a pre-arrival call to discuss all the technicalities. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. I've been on like now 7 trips with him. We've never had a pre-trip call. So I get on this call and they start talking about insurance and the difficulty of, or how remote it is, and that we're skiing on glaciers. And if you fall inside it's random. If you fall inside a crevasse, how you're probably going to die. And I'm like, oh, this is awful. What did I just sign myself up to? And then I was chatting with someone else. These are all sail trips. So we started from Argentina and sailed across the Drake Passage to Antarctica. And I maybe had heard briefly about what the Drake Passage was without ever really doing a lot of research. And then someone told me, you're sailing across the Drake Passage. That's pretty crazy. That's, I think, the most dangerous passage in the world. I had no idea. So at that time, I was like, I wonder if I can't back out of the trip because I've already committed to it. But it turned out the absolute best trip of my life. The nature there is so phenomenal. It's so breathtaking in beauty. The sea life you see with whales is amazing. The solitude you have when you're on this massive continent with, you're 3 people, there's 4 or 5 of us, including the guide, and there's only you. And it turned out regarding the Drake Passage, I on purpose didn't do any research because I'm committed to go. So I only started to find out more when I got there. And what I learned is the Drake Passage is either called the Drake Lake or the Drake Shake, because there could be moments where it's so calm that it feels like a lake. And then I think everyone could figure out what the Drake Shake is.
Yeah.
So the passage took about 5 days to sail, 4 days lucky enough to get the Drake Lake, 1 proper day of the Drake Shake. So, yeah. So that's that trip. We were there for about 3.5 weeks, including the sailing there. Every day we were sailing to a new point, doing some sort of ski adventure or ice climbing, and it was phenomenal. I have to say I was very lucky to participate.
That's great. That's great. Thank you for sharing. Let's go back and start with your childhood and talk about where did you grow up. Maybe share a little bit about your family. Yeah. And
so I think it's
yeah. Go ahead, please.
I think it's a classic Thunderbird, story. They're all unique. They're all interesting and unique in their own way. So my heritage is predominantly Swedish. Besides my brother, sister, mother, father, my whole family lives in Sweden. But I was born in Aruba. My sister was born in Mexico. My brother was born in Sweden. And then, so from Aruba, we moved to Mexico, to Acapulco. When I was 5, we moved to Yellowstone National Park. Randomly, my father was CEO of Yellowstone. And then we moved to Newport Beach, California. And that was really kind of early days for me. So kind of early elementary. So
you started traveling when you were very young.
I was lucky enough to have very cool parents and fortunate that they're still with me now. And we're just 3 little blonde kids along for a very cool journey with them. And then they realized it's, to have a little bit of stability, it's good for your kids to grow up in one place. So from like 2nd grade, I grew up in Newport Beach, not the worst place in the world to grow up. And then very cliche, went from Newport Beach to USC in Los Angeles. And I was working at the height of the tech bubble in like 99. Everyone thought they were going to be a 22-year-old millionaire. And when the tech bubble imploded, I knew I was working in LA, not happy at all, working for a company that Cisco Systems had funded. And I thought I'm going to use this severance package to go travel around Europe as someone that's 22 should do. And so I started traveling to, all these different countries in Europe. And I realized I like to be a little bit off the beaten path. So the more remote the country is or the place, that's the place I wanted to be. And from, so I got back, I realized at that time, now you could probably do it being some sort of social media influencer. But at that time, there wasn't really a career in traveling. But I knew I loved exploring the world.
Michael, do you remember the first time you heard about Thunderbird?
Yeah. And so I had just finished this amazing trip around Europe. And I knew, at that time, around 2000, there wasn't a career in being a professional traveler. But I wanted, to explore a life abroad. And when I was doing my research, this university I'd never heard about had been number one in international business for like 20 years. And I thought that's where I want to go. Now, the process to apply to it's like a year program. So I thought in the interim, I'm going to move to Aspen, be a ski bum and tennis instructor and bartender in Aspen. And while I was there, a friend of mine from university was involved in Peace Corps. And I thought, oh, wow, Peace Corps, maybe that's something that could be, and he couldn't say more positive things about it. And I love the idea of volunteering. I love the idea of really, from my travels, going to somewhere especially off the beaten path at that time. And I thought if I'm going to do that, that's something to do pre-MBA. So I put the pursuit of an MBA on hold for a couple of years, applied to Peace Corps as I was living in Aspen and being a tennis instructor and a ski bum and bartender. And ultimately they sent me to Ukraine. And when I read the profile, I thought this was amazing. I had been to some of the countries that had bordered Ukraine on the west. And when I got there, I just fell in love with the country, fell in love with the people, the country, the whole transformation of the economy and the culture, how everything was just moving so quick. And so then went to Thunderbird.
And
Yeah.
Let me pause for a second.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Peace Corps a little bit for people who didn't participate. And I know a lot of T-Birds who did Peace Corps in their time. So can you give us an idea what it's like to be in Peace Corps and what's your mission?
Amazing. So it's like one of those cliches that you're there as a volunteer. So you're there helping other people. But the more you help, the better you feel, and the more you feel like you're getting from the experience. So Peace Corps was a volunteer organization founded by JFK in the 60s, essentially sending skilled volunteers around the world to emerging markets. And really, part of the mission is a cultural exchange. Obviously, we're there to help and to provide some sort of technical capacity. My volunteer assignment was teaching business classes at a university in Western Ukraine. And what's really great, one of many things that's great about the program is the first 3 months you do this immersion, language and cultural training. So you do a staging for 10 days. So you show up with for us, it was about 50 different Peace Corps volunteers. None of us really knew each other. We show up there and sorry. Oh, hold on. Now, we're going to have to pause this. My dog is going to start barking. I'm going to go to a place that it might be strange to have now chopped 3 times, but
that's fine.
Yeah.
I've seen everything.
Yeah. This will be a much easier place to have a recorded conversation without now my dog. Okay. Should we start?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead. So you were in West Ukraine teaching at the university.
The first part of Peace Corps is this cultural immersion. So you do a 10-day staging in what we did in Cherkasy. If anyone's familiar with Ukraine, it's a regional city 2 hours from Kyiv. We show up.
That's amazing because I was born in Cherkasy.
No way.
And I lived there for 23 years.
Love it. So
that's my hometown.
Love it. So that was where we first experienced in Ukraine. You got off Boryspil straight on a bus to Cherkasy, 2002. So many interesting things that I saw and experienced then. But the first day of staging, so I find 2 people my age, said, look, it's our first day. Let's go explore Cherkasy a little bit. We end up at some nightclub, all concrete, folded chairs. And I, go up to, I'm like, guys, you find the seats. I'll go get the first drinks, go up to the bar. I don't speak any Ukrainian, don't speak any Russian. Find 2 kind of fake blonde girls or blonde or whatever. And like, do you speak English? They're like, chut. I'm like, I guess that means maybe a little. I'm like, look, can you help me out? I need 3 vodka drinks. And they're like, 3 vodka. I'm like, yeah. So they tell that to the bartender. The bartender looks at me. He's like, $1, $2, $12. I'm like, $12 for 3 drinks? It's not that bad. Give him the money. He puts 3 bottles of vodka on the table. I'm like, oh, wow. That's my first day in Ukraine. And immediately I'm like, this is going to be a adventurous 2 years. And it was. And after 10 days of staging, we went to Chigarin, and that's where I lived for 3 months, studying Ukrainian. It would be 5 hours a day, 6 days a week for 3 months. And at that time, almost no one there's many people in Chigarin in 2002 that had never met an American, had never seen a foreigner. Yeah. And we're walking every day to our language program with our host family. And just the little things, like the first day, stolova ложка, China ложка, stolova ложка, just learning different words. Yeah, it was fantastic. So, that's great. And I did the 2 years in Chernivtsi, which is a town in the West Ukraine. There's a beautiful university called Chernivtsi National University. It looks like out of a fairy tale, this university, and was privileged to be able to teach there for 2 years, and then came to Thunderbird.
Okay. What was your Thunderbird experience like?
Oh, I think like a lot of people, probably the first time in my life that I felt I was truly around my people, if that makes sense. Interesting people from all around the world with great, ambitions to travel, to start business, to explore the world. And it was not long enough, tell you the truth. I wish it was longer, because it was so intensive in terms of the coursework. But I spent most of the time on the Glendale campus, but this is when they had that, the satellite campus. They had one in Monterey and another one outside of Geneva. And so I did the summer session outside of Geneva. That was also amazing. And so.
Got it. And so how did you find your first job out of Thunderbird? Did you find it while you were a student or afterwards?
No, it was pretty funny. This is what I learned. I can never judge how good I do in an interview. So sometimes you think you do great in an interview. Sometimes you think you bomb and there's no way you're going to get an offer. So Honeywell was recruiting. I signed up, went to the first round interview. There was like the good cop, bad cop. And the bad cop was really grilling me on some questions. And I thought I did an awful job of answering them. And turned out that I was one of a couple Thunderbird that they invited for their more in-depth 3-day interview process at headquarters in Morristown, New Jersey. And so I got there. They're looking at my CV. They're like, Peace Corps volunteer, tennis bum or a ski bum in Aspen. I think I was like, at that time, they're maybe their diversity hire or something like that, because everyone else was an engineer, PhD, and I was just so radically different in terms of profile that maybe that's what helped win the job. And ultimately, they gave me this exploding offer where I had 10 days to accept the offer. And I remember, like, when I was at that final round interview, everyone else was all Ivy League. So it was all Harvard, Brown, Princeton. And so I thought, I'm clearly very smart candidates. Everyone I interviewed with was also extremely intelligent. And, I thought maybe this would be a good balance to the other part of my CV. And so I accepted the offer, and I had a really good year and a half there. But I knew immediately, while it was great technical experience, I was kind of starting to go down a path that wasn't for me. And I had several friends from Thunderbird that had worked at Sigma Blazer in Ukraine. I was dying to get back to Ukraine.
Sigma Blazer is one of the first private equity firms in Ukraine.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can probably tell more.
Yeah, and they were the largest institutionally backed private equity fund in Ukraine at the time. They had just closed a $300 million Ukraine-specific fund, and were in the process of raising another $100 million fund for Kazakhstan. And Michael Blazer loved Thunderbird alumni. So Michael Blazer was the founder of Sigma Blazer, and when I saw the posting, I immediately applied. Flew to Houston to interview with Michael, and I remember on the flight over thinking, I don't care what they offer me in terms of money. If I get this, I was just living there as a Peace Corps volunteer on a $220 a month stipend with housing included. I'll make it work. But this is really what I want to do. And Michael was certainly much more generous than what I would have taken. And the offer was good, and I was immediately on the plane to Ukraine.
That's great. And so, can you talk a little bit that experience about acquiring businesses in Ukraine? And it was about 20 years ago, right?
Yeah, close. It's amazing how time flies. 2007 to 2009, about.
Yeah. Well, the economy at that time, Ukrainian economy is kind of on the weaker side and developing, and it's I don't know, a lot of corruption. I guess. How did you guys deal with it, and how did you look at companies at that time?
So certainly a lot of corruption, but more just the biggest issue at that time was business owners really understanding the value of their company, the benefit of what private equity professionals could come in, not only to provide capital, but to provide strategic thinking and growth, and then some sort of integration issues. The corruption, we didn't feel it that much, but certainly more the bureaucracy of getting things done. And also kind of like, yeah, but by the way, this is where a lot of opportunity is. A classic example is we had acquired this kind of CVS or Boots, if you're in Europe, druggeries chain. They were the second or third position in the market. They had about 25 locations, and we wanted to scale it to become a market leader. And, we took it from about 25 locations to about 120 locations in 18 months. So really hyper growth. Again, we start doing all the little McKinsey and BCG type of strategy things while we're funding growth, understanding what at the time, probably 5 to 7 were extremely profitable. Some were breaking even and some were losing a lot of money. So trying to learn in real time and very quickly, what are the attributes that make a great store versus a break-even store versus a loss leader? One of the great takeaways there is all of our best performing stores were located next to McDonald's. And there was 50 other McDonald's in Ukraine that didn't have, that we were not close to. So that was like the immediate expansion plan. Let's focus on McDonald's and get as close to them as possible as we expand. Another was kind of on the operational side. And when the founder stayed on as an operating president, but coming to him and like, okay, look, if we see, we're open for more than 12 hours a day, but 90% of our transactions are during lunch and the hour and a half after work. So the schedule here was people work 7 days in a row, 12 hours a day. I'm like, oh, no, what an awful schedule for someone to work. So the turnover on staffing was very high, and it's very costly because you're not staffing towards transactions. And so putting together a different staffing model where, you look at transactions per hour and then how long it would take to put the new product on the shelf. And that was able to reduce payroll by over 50%. Mm-hmm. The impact to the EBITDA more than finance the acquisition of the company. So, and those are the really cool things that you can do when you're kind of in this kind of new emerging economy.
Got it. Did you make your fund investors happy eventually?
I hope so. So, but unfortunately, what happened globally was the financial crisis. And I think Ukraine was probably one of the top 3 or 4 most impacted economies during that time. So I think it was like Venezuela, Zimbabwe, and then Ukraine in terms of impact. The hryvnia devalued massively. Yanukovych was just about to come back into power, and there was a little bit of paralysis between Yushchenko, who was the president at the time, and Timoshenko, who was, his political adversary. So from the political side, it was not good and trending bad. And from the economic point, it was not good. So that kind of ended, at the time, our LPs were like, no new transactions. Even if we've committed money, we'll pay the management fees, but no new deals, I think.
Got it. And so you moving to consulting at that time.
Well, I did the one thing I promised myself I would never do, which was go work for our family hotel business. And let's say I love my parents too much to work with them. I came back to California for a year and a half. We did acquisition and renovation of a property in Tucson. It was pretty successful. So got to cut my teeth a little bit more on the business side of hospitality. And But at that time, like I was living in Los Angeles. Every day is 72 and sunny. It's very boring for me after a while. I'm like, I've seen this, I've done it, I know what it is, and I want to go back to live abroad. And I was almost going to go to New York, and my brother's like, Michael, like, one, that's not abroad. Two, you've been there already. Three, there's 1,000 Ivy League MBAs there. Like, you really should go. You should go to Moscow, is what he said. I'm like, Mark, that's kind of what I was thinking. At the time, Moscow was booming. I'd never been, actually. So, but once that seed was planted, I'm like, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to, buy a one-way ticket. I'm going to write everyone I know that from Thunderbird and from USC and everyone that maybe they know, just start to cast a wide net. So I have a lot of like informational interviews when I land in Moscow. And I had a 3-month visa. So, I had to move quick. And lucky enough, on my third day in Moscow, I met a senior partner at KPMG, had the global head of private equity who had just visited Moscow, and saw that there's enough critical mass in private equity to have a dedicated team. And also there was a lot of work to do in strategy. So I came in working at the time, an associate director and then a director in the global strategy group and head of private equity for CIS.
That's great. And so then you were building and developing hotels in Russia.
So yeah, and that led to the first, that was the next
step of your career. Was it all close to Moscow, or you went kind of deeper in Russia? Or where did you develop these places?
So 9 hotels in 9 cities in one portfolio where I was CEO of. And then I was a board member of the Four Seasons in St. Petersburg, which in my opinion was the best hotel in Europe. But we developed all internationally branded full service hotels in 9 cities. So not only did I get to cut my teeth in an industry I love, I got to explore a lot of Russia. So from Izhevsk, Sochi, Astrakhan, Novosibirsk, Voronezh, and to develop hotels, it's a difficult job, and to do it in these kind of still a little bit wild east cities was amazing. So it was like no shortage of stories came from that, and worked with.
Was it a ground up development?
Yeah, of the 9 hotels we had, we acquired 2 and built 7.
Wow! And
we operated 8 of the 9.
So what's your favorite story out of that time?
One that I could 2, but I can't tell here. So two come to mind, and I would gladly share with you over a beer at some point in the future. But what were the challenges? Land acquisition is very difficult. So from the process of acquiring, permitting, understanding the pivot. So, okay, I'll tell you, like one from a business side. Obviously, the uprising in Ukraine in 2014, Russia took over Crimea, and we're sitting in a boardroom with, the shareholder, the board members, and we're just looking in real time, seeing the ruble devalue from what was like kind of stable, 30 rubles to the dollar to about 75. And how does that impact our business? How does that impact our growth strategy? And kind of having to make some, hard or necessary executive decisions in a very short amount of time on, clearly we have to pivot strategies. What does that look like? What does that look like for hotels in development? What does that look like for our exit strategy? So.
That's fascinating. And then, so I assume you left Russia before the war started.
Oh, yes and no. So after we exited that, I thought that this is, I'm at that time about 42. I'm 49 now. I thought this is the best chance I'm ever going to have to be an entrepreneur. And moving forward, I really want to invest my time into to positions that I have some sort of equity in. So I helped start a home sharing business that was launched in New York. SoftBank came into the second seed round of that and led the Series A. And it was very interesting to be part from a very early pre-seed funding raise to get the concept off the ground. I moved to New York to open up the first location and to see this go on kind of a rocket ship of growth. Now, At the same time, this is when co-working, everyone and their brother had a co-working brand, and everyone thought co-working was going to be the next big thing. This one, WeWork was going from like a $2 billion valuation to a $20 billion valuation to a $48 billion valuation. And I knew I couldn't do two things at the same time from like a co-founder or operational role. So I I was still in Moscow, but I stayed in Moscow to lead the growth of a co-working brand called DI Telegraph. And that was in the Centralny Telegraph building next to the Ritz and next to Red Square. And our whole idea was to take that concept and expand it through Europe and ultimately exit to a leading co-working brand. So that's what I was doing up, to COVID. Luckily, the WeWork failed IPO happened right before COVID, and we were lucky enough to exit to a German brand right before this happened, and maybe one of the few people that actually made a little bit of money in co-working. And so at that point, I've kind of exited. I'd exited that, looking for the next opportunity to do. It's probably too much of a tangent, but I got my 3-year Russian visa ended in. I got a 3-year Russian visa in July, so I assumed my 3-year Russian visa would end in July. A friend of mine in February 2020, like around the 25th of February, asked if I want to climb Mount Blanc with him. I said, yeah, that sounds interesting. When are you doing it? He said, I'm doing it in July. I said, okay, well, let me check my passport. I know my visa should be ending sometime in July, but I don't know when it's going to end. And I looked at my visa and it said expiring March 6th. And this is like February 25th. And I at the time, I didn't know why that was. It had something to do with that my passport actually expired September 6th, and visas are now, tend not to be, or they tend to automatically expire 6 months before the expiration of your passport. If my friend didn't randomly call me for this trip in July to climb Mount Blanc, I had no travel plans, and I would never have looked at my visa to see if it would have expired. Because of that call, I had to rush, left Moscow on the same date it expired on March 6th. There was a global pandemic about to happen, but at that time, it was just kind of early stage news. And I got back to California for what I thought would be a 2-week trip to get a new passport and a new 3-year Russian visa. And on the same day that they were, it was supposed to get approved, March 14th, I spoke to the agency and they're like, Michael, don't worry. Oksana has your passport. She's going to approve it today. All good. 2 hours later, they called me saying that the Russian border was closed. And from there, I wasn't able to get back to Russia for a year and a half. Finally, after a year and a half, they started issuing visas again. And I got back. At this point, I had started a new hospitality company. We had done an acquisition in Ireland. We were about to close. We had gone through the due diligence and to do another acquisition in Burgundy. I thought, this is great. I started a dream company of mine, acquiring these beautiful estates in Europe. I live in Moscow for half the time on property, getting these businesses up and running. And I couldn't ask for a better thing. And then, of course, the war happened in Ukraine. And I was predominantly living on both between Ireland and France, where we had acquired these hotels. I tried 3 times to get back to Russia, and the process of getting there was too difficult. Bringing money in was too difficult. Clearly, the vibe had changed. A lot of my friends that lived there had moved, both Russian and international. And at that time, I thought, okay, look, there's no way I can, get back there every month. It's too difficult. And I decided to move to Portugal, which is where
Let's talk about Aspen Company.
Yeah.
How did you come up with that idea? What's the concept? And I have a bunch of questions about it.
Great. So like a lot of people during COVID, I did nothing for the first 3 months. I had exited my business. I was kind of in between different opportunities. And I just I used that as an opportunity to get in really good shape. I was doing a 10K run every day. I was playing golf 3 times a week before they unfortunately closed the golf courses in California, and started to write the book that, I told myself every year I'm going to write this book. And so I was enjoying this time, and it really gave me a good clarity of thought to think about, what should the next chapter look like? And I'd started talking to a friend of mine. We'd known each other for 25 years, grew up in Southern California, Newport Beach together. He had this affinity for these beautiful estates. He had been sending me these estates for 15 years. And you'd always look at him like, how can something like this be so cheap? It's an old historic estate in some place in the European countryside, 35 rooms, hundreds of acres for a couple million. And so we started to do a deeper dive on one in the west coast of Ireland in West Cork. It had been on the market for 7.5 pre-COVID. And we were, they were trying to sell it for 3.5, and we thought, oh, this is amazing. So we flew over during COVID, like peak COVID, in September 2020. There was like 4 people on the plane. We went from LAX to Dublin. When we got there, the guy on the border is like, questioning me if this was, what was it, essential travel. Why are you coming here? We told him very openly, we're coming to look at a hotel to buy. And he's like, I don't know if that's essential travel. I'm like, couldn't you have told me that 9 hours ago in LA? Like, I've just flown 9 hours to come here. I'm PCR tested. Vaccines aren't out at this point. And now I'm kind of like facing getting turned around and having to fly back to LA. And so I said, look, please call the manager of the hotel. He can verify our purpose. And the GM was classically Irish. And he's like, if you don't let these guys in, we're going bankrupt. Please let them in. We need to sell. And the gentleman was nice enough to let us in the country. We visited the property, and it was stunning. It clearly needed to be fully brought back to life. But we ended up closing on that property, acquired it for 3.3, and put another $4 million in. So on the balance sheet, it was plus minus what their original asking price was. And during COVID, there was like 2 phases of inflation. There was that first year where everything was actually really reasonable. There was a lot of inventory that was built up. Everyone was desperate to work. So our capital improvement plan really looked like we had put in like $8 million in. We opened up, we returned, I think 9% of invested capital in the first 4 months of operation. Wildly successful on our side. Ultimately ended up making it a member of Relais and Chateau, which in my opinion is the best collection of luxury boutique hotels in the world. And based off the success of that, ended up buying another even more grandiose property in Burgundy. And from the business side, like every time I'm getting into a business, it's always with an attempt to scale something. And the original strategy was to have the best collection of luxury boutique hotels in Europe with the ambition to do 1 project every year. After doing 2 projects, I realized I'm going to kill myself in the pursuit of this. And since then, while I kind of maybe like in our internal dialogue or internal strategy sessions, we're thinking this is actually not a scalable property profile. What this really is real estate art. And there's always going to be a market for people that they can't afford Chelsea, they can't afford Manchester United, but they certainly would love to have a well-running, newly renovated luxury estate that has a probably a high-end, like high single-digit, 8-9% annual yield for them. And people will pay very good cap rates for a product like that. But that wasn't our strategy. So we've kind of done a little bit of a pivot in how in still playing in the space of luxury boutique hospitality, but I'll stop now and let you ask questions.
So what was the cap rate you paid for your first property?
A cap rate was
was it operating hotel at that time?
Yeah,
or
so
it was just
everything operating, always operating. They were cash flow negative, so it's almost impossible to have a cap rate. They were barely breaking even. So they weren't bleeding money, but they were kind of surviving, but not enough to have replacement into the product. So And that's why they hadn't invested into that property for over 10 years. And that's why it really needed a kind of robust property improvement plan. We fully renovated every guest room, every common area. We added a wellness component right on the lake. And so what I learned in the space, and a lot of it's kind of obvious, when you're in a destination location, there is economies of scale. So what we were looking for is properties that were about 20 rooms that we can take up to 40 rooms, that were really mismanaged and needed a capital improvement plan. That was kind of our criteria. Putting in best in practice systems, better management, from a easy point. So, this hotel, like the one we bought in Burgundy, and we love to see this. You look at their peak season, it's the same rate on Wednesday as it is on Saturday. It's the same rate in the beginning of the season as it is at the end of the season. Maybe there's a slight alteration into what they charge in the off season, but it's the same. So they essentially have no revenue management. Year one, we were able to increase room revenue by over 100% in every single month based off just a best in practice approach to revenue management. So again, a very easy way, and we had not renovated the rooms at that point. So just having a more disciplined or better best in practice approach to our operations, we're able to see really significant increases in revenue and certainly on the bottom line.
Yeah, low hanging fruit.
Yeah.
How do you finance these acquisitions?
These were all equity. No one was going to, the bank would finance anything at that time during COVID for sure, especially in hospitality. So from a capital structure point of view, strategy, equity investment in the beginning, build up cash flow, and then refi and pull out pretty much all of your equity within 5 years and have now a good stable cash flow asset.
Well, that's great. So when you underwrite an acquisition like this, what's your target IRR, or I don't know, or cash on cash?
So it's a little bit different because, like I said, and now I've I hate to use the word expert, but in terms of luxury, boutique luxury destination hospitality, I've become kind of an expert over the last 5 years, really living mostly on property. And this one, again, it's not, you have to find the exit. One, you can keep it forever. And this is a trophy asset that you're proud of. Like I said, it's real estate art. Both properties have, 9% annual yield after reserve. So you put in enough reserve to make sure it's fresh. But what we've done now, we've kind of pivoted. So I can say from a capital deployment point of view for CapEx, in Ireland, it's a kilometer. It's almost a mile from the gate to the manor. And from the gate to the lake house, it is a mile. So all of those roads are going to have to be repaved in the next 5 years. That's going to be $300,000. In Burgundy, the roof is probably going to last another 5 years. And at that point, it's going to be $1 million to renovate the roof. So when you have these old estates, every year you're going to have a pretty robust capital improvement plan to keep it operating. And after reserves, we're getting about 8 to 9% yield.
That's great.
There will always be there is a acquirer type that will pay cap rates of 5.5, 6, even maybe lower for a product like that. But going back into my passion is always to scale concepts. What we've done now over the last year is totally refine that model. So, okay, look at every problem to solve. Again, putting in that kind of McKinsey strategy consulting, problem solving. So if the estates are very capital intensive, what do the guests want? They want immersion to nature. They really want, when you get into the property, you want to feel your blood pressure drop. So you have to have a property that has this wow factor in terms of nature. But you don't need to acquire these older estates. So what we do, we do prefabricated villas, a bigger room experience. The CapEx is much better, much easier to manage. Utility costs are much better as well. It's much more cost effective. So we look at great tier 1 locations as well. We're doing a development in Comporta in Portugal now. would love, the plan is to do the next location in Sardinia and then start building off like Ibiza, Barolo in the north of Italy. And so that's on the CapEx side. On the OpEx side, I think a lot of people fall into the pitfalls of luxury hospitality, chasing stars, chasing the 5-star hotel, chasing the 2-star Michelin restaurant. For our locations, we have about 50 people that work at each location. And it's just...
So you manage in-house, right? You don't use management companies to run this place.
Oh, no, we run everything ourselves. We run everything. But now we've refined a model that we can run all the same amenities, all the same services, but using better prop tech, AI for all the admin stuff, and better processes. We can offer the same level of service, but operate it with 8 to 10 people. But we sacrifice a 5-star hotel. No one cares about the 5-star anymore. So if we look at Ireland as an example, to be a 5-star in Ireland or in France, we need someone waving to you when you come in the gate. No one cares about the guy waving to you coming in the gate. Then you drive up the road. Now, to be a Relais and Chateau or a 5-star, we need someone on the door, opening the door for you, welcoming you. You could keep the door open, or if it's seasonal, you can have an automated door that opens and closes for you. So, and then you get into the reception. You can have now automated, like pre-arrival reception, where all of that admin is done prior to arrival. And to be a Relais and Chateau, we offer a glass of champagne upon arrival. In Burgundy, it's a Cremant, because you wouldn't offer a champagne in Burgundy. But that's always kind of an awkward experience too. You've been traveling for 10 hours. You're with all your luggage around. You're wearing your coat, and people are it's information overload about the history of the property and all the amenities and activities. And while you're drinking a glass of champagne when you just arrived, it's better for the housekeeper to set a little half bottle or bottle in the room with a nice note. And when you are in the room, then you can appreciate the glass of champagne. So it's just going through, that's just the arrival. The F&B, we have 12 chefs in Burgundy because we are 2-star aspirational for a Michelin. I could create an amazing grill concept with amazing food with 2 chefs. So it's just kind of rethinking the whole.
So that's your kind of new project. That's your vision into the future.
That's the vision. That is the vision, in my opinion, of destination hospitality. So when you're dealing, like, what is the business model today? You have typically a peak season that lasts no more than 6 months. You have a shoulder season that's 3 to 4 months. Probably actually 2 to 3 months. It's going to be your shoulder.
And what's your average occupancy throughout the year?
Yeah, but then you have your off season. And what the business model before is make all of your money in the peak season, hopefully break even in the shoulder season, and try not to lose all the money you made in the peak season in the off season. And that's, to me, not the most fun business model. What we've done now is ensure that we are profitable every month. And that's much more fun, and it's enjoyable, and it doesn't sacrifice anything from the guest experience. In many ways, it's actually better because the guest has a much better room experience.
So why not hiring a management company? So just invest in these properties and hire property management company to run them, and keep buying next properties. Is it just a different model?
No, there are a lot of third-party management companies and with great capability. I think from my side, I like the operation side. I like to make sure that the guests are getting a truly amazing experience. And when you control the operations, you control that. So I like the investment side as well. I like creating the product, working on the design, making sure that each place has a sense of place, that you feel like you're in Ireland or you feel like you're in France. But if you outsource the management, there is always a risk that the execution is not going to be as good as maybe you think you can do it. And I think the biggest risk there is, especially on a smaller hotel, how they manage costs. And the biggest cost in these businesses is labor. So we created our own kind of automated staffing guides that were able to reduce payroll by 30%. Just through, like, again, using very detailed algorithms and benchmark it to KPIs. And I don't know if a third-party management company for this type of property profile is going to dive that deep into the costing of everything.
Got it. As what you said that you guys part of Relay and Chateau system. What did it take you to get that membership, to get into that organization?
A lot of luck. So the second one we acquired was already a member of Relay and Chateau, which was great. But I kind of joked with the president. If I was in charge of marketing for Relay and Chateau, my caption would be, first, the best collection of luxury boutique hotels and restaurants in the world. The truth. If you're a standalone restaurant, you better have at least 2-star Michelin to even apply to Relay and Chateau. My kind of caption underneath that would be, statistically 3 times harder to get into than Harvard. So the amount of hotels and restaurants that apply to Relay and Chateau every year, and then you look at the 15 to 20 that they admit into their membership every year, it statistically is about 3 times lower. The acceptance rate is 3 times lower than Harvard's.
And is it just a prestige, or they do provide traffic to your website or bookings?
Oh, no, they're fantastic. Their clientele is extremely loyal. Their channels are very well developed. The approval process, you apply. If you get through the first screening process, they look at the look and feel, the history, does it have impact to another Relay and Chateau member? And then they will send a secret shopper that does an assessment. And you have to be on your game to pass that assessment. And then every year or two, they'll send another one. So it's not like you're just admitted the first time. You have to continue to have an exceptional level of service and detail to stay a member.
Got it. And so do you do your own marketing for your hotels?
So especially in Burgundy, the Relay and Chateau channels, I think probably 30% of our clientele is directly through the Relay and Chateau channel, but there's a huge percentage that they only stay at Relay and Chateau. They might have booked on our website, but because we are a member of Relay and Chateau, that they're staying with us. But in terms of PR, marketing, digital ad spend on Google Ads or Meta, we manage that ourselves.
You invite influencers to your properties to post on Instagram?
In the beginning, I had a very, I was kind of strictly against that. I don't want to do that. Our clientele are, and by the way, maybe it's representative of my age. I'm 49 now. I don't want a 22-year-old social media influencer coming and taking all these pictures to her audience of 16-year-olds. I didn't think that ROI would be that good. And what I was more about, like, okay, who is our clientele? Our clientele are, late 20s to early 70s. They're real people, and we offer a real authentic experience. And I thought it was a little bit too fake to have social media influencers that are clearly there just to get, a free night stay and a free meal. I have evolved my thought on that. So we started having social media influencers, but again, if you're going to do that, what we've learned is make sure that you vet them very, very well, that their audience is online with your audience, that their content is relevant to, you, that you get to keep some of the content that they produce for your own social media, which is great to have very well professional photos and videos. Yeah. And that there's a clearly defined what's the outcome of what you expect? Is it going to be one video and 3 posts? If you don't define that, then it could go wrong real quick.
Yeah. And how do you deal with all reviews online, with positive reviews, negative reviews? It's just people very happy to speak online after their experiences.
My brother and I went to university together. We both lived in LA long enough to understand how to or not deal with homeless people. So like my brother over lunch, Michael, never engage a homeless person. Just ignore them. Just don't engage. I think that that's the best approach to negative reviews. Don't engage in a public forum a negative review. certainly reach out to that person on a call or an email to get really candid feedback is great. So on a negative review, I will email the person apologizing and, would you have 5 to 15 minutes for me to better understand how we can improve next time? It's a fantastic opportunity, but I never ask them as well, can you remove your review? I don't think that that's right. If they want to, if we have an amazing conversation and I invite them back to property and they want to remove it, that's up to them. On positive reviews, everyone loves an affirmation. So I don't think you even need to, you have to write some kind of generic thank you. You can even just put the little heart or some affirmation. People love it.
Got it. So what's your day like when you at the hotel and when you're not at the hotel?
Well, so the first 3 years I was living at the hotels, and at some point I realized I can't grow a business if I'm writing SOPs on how to answer the phone. It's impossible to grow a business. So after putting stable management in place, putting all the systems, we reformed every part of the operation. Now I'm much more focused on growth. I'm doing two things kind of simultaneously. One is expanding the new concept, which is called Subtle. We are in land acquisition process now for the property in Comporta. The vision there, again, is pretty expansive, like fast-paced rollout with hopefully the target of 15 locations in the next 7 to 10 years, either open or under development. So that's taking up almost all my time. What I had mentioned about the revenue management, our family hotel business had developed our own methodology of revenue management over the last 30 years. We have a hotel in Palm Springs. It's a Best Western Plus. It outperforms the Hyatt, the Hilton, the Marriott, all the leading brands that are certainly positioned better in terms of brand than a Best Western Plus. And a large part of that success is through what we believe is a superior approach to revenue management. And it's that same revenue management that we were able to more than 2x our room revenue in our first year in Ireland without any investment in the rooms. And even in our fourth year, we're 24% above last year. So it wasn't like the hockey stick for 1 year and then 3%, 4% growth. So I'm in the process of making that into an AI-powered revenue management software that hopefully we will be introducing into the market in the next 6 months.
Excellent. So you have this great knowledge of this revenue management systems. How do we guests at the hotels give us an advice how to book the room to save money? How far in advance, or any sites that we should use, or should we go directly to the property site?
My recommendation always use something like a booking.com to see what's in the market, and you'll see people don't care about stars anymore, but they care about whatever the rating is. So if I go to TripAdvisor and it has an excellent rating, that means more to me whether it's a 5-star or 4-star. That's real consumer feedback. And Booking, you can see all the competition all there. So it's very easy to see where the pricing is. The earlier you book, if they're doing their job in terms of revenue management, the better pricing you'll get early on. And it's almost every hotel has very favorable cancellation policies. So don't forget to cancel, but most hotels have 24 to 48 hour cancellation. If it's a destination hotel, it's 5 to 7 days max. So you'll get better rates if you book early. If you want to be a real stickler, you can always call the hotel and let them know, if I book on booking.com, that you're going to have to pay 15% to booking.com. Maybe you can give me a 10% discount. It's going to save you money. It's a win-win situation. I don't do that too often. I never do that, but people could. And I tell my front of house, if someone does call that, especially if it's last minute, give them a discount. If they're going to book on booking.com, it's going to be at least 15% of room revenue. But my favorite approach is I go on booking.com, I see what product's there, and then I book directly on the hotel's website. One, as a hotelier, I want to give them as much of the room revenue as possible. I don't want someone else to take a piece of that. Two, most likely you're going to get better upgrades if you book directly. You'll have some sort of favorable terms if you book directly.
Got it. Excellent. All right. It was a fascinating conversation. So let's wrap it up with a few quick questions. So since you have your boutique hotel, luxury hotel in Burgundy, what's your favorite village and favorite wine in Burgundy?
I can't say
if you drink wine.
Oh, I love wine. But if people see this, I don't want to make any enemies because they're so amazing. Look, I would village, the Chateau Neuf, but there's two Chateau Neufs. Like this one is this beautiful, charming medieval village. It's 15 minutes or 10 minutes from our property. It's been rated one of the most stunning medieval villages for right cause in France. It's phenomenal. And there's a restaurant on top owned by a British couple that's been there for 30 years. This creperie that is amazing. That's my favorite village. Beaune, if anyone hasn't been there, it's the St. Moritz or the Aspen of the wine country. It's the most stunning wine-centric town you'll ever visit in your life. You have to go. If you do go to Beaune, obviously peak season, but they do a wine auction in first week of November. It's amazing. It's a wine auction for charity. The town comes to life for 2 or 3 days. Everyone's drinking wine, but in total French style, you don't see any drunk people. You don't see anyone acting rude, but you see hundreds of thousands of people with their little wine cups going from one place to another. And that's something to experience, especially if you love wine. But from the winery makers, there's so many. But I will say, like growing up in California, I never liked Chardonnay. I thought it was too oaky and too buttery. And in Burgundy, it's all Chardonnay if it's white, and it's all Pinot Noir if it's red. And there, they don't even call it Chardonnay. It's a white Burgundy.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome, Michael. Thank you so much for your time. It was a wonderful conversation. Thank you for sharing your experience, and best of luck to you. And we wish you continued success with Aspen.